We're starting.
Okay. Welcome to California True Crime. This is a special episode. We're going to be kind of going over the last season and talking about what we liked and didn't like, answering some of your questions, and then talking about next season. And with me are Sean and Charles. How are you guys?
I'm good.
I'm great, thank you.
So first we're going to start with, Charles is going to start with, actually, sort of our history and how we got started.
Yeah, so how we got started was, this is actually our first season, but we've been working on this for, it was 3 years in the first, no?
I mean, you think of it as 3 years, but you're using just the one date, so it's technically 2 years. Unless you're using the first year as like a zero baby style, where you're not.
Yeah, I classified that as, because it's been 3 Christmases since
It's been 3 Christmases, which is 2 years.
Right. No, it's 3 Christmases.
This would be starting the third year.
Yeah, we're just at the beginning of it.
It's been that much fun. It really has been fun, so I don't know why it seems longer.
Sorry for interrupting your timeline of wrong years.
No, it's fine.
Go for
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So it's 2. So we've been working on this for 2 years, even though this is the end of our first season. And we really got started at a friend of ours, Wendy's ugly Christmas sweater party. Three Christmases ago. So
yes.
And we'd been friends for a while, a long while.
And Jessica and I have been Valentines since kindergarten.
That's come to light during this
Yes.
during this whole podcast. And in fact, you and I, Sean, started talking about podcasts we've been listening to, and it came up that you're our resident expert on probably one of the more famous California crimes.
Oh, I was very, very infatuated with Zodiac for most of my life. And I was thinking we should try. We started talking about it,
Right.
and we should maybe do a whole podcast on Zodiac. And then we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then I looked up, and that was right when it was like 2 weeks after Criminology had come out with their Zodiac one. So we're like, nah, let's not do that because someone else is doing it. So,
and chances are, if you're listening to this, then you know Criminology's podcast, and that we listened to quite a few episodes. I mean, I know I binged it over the holiday seasons after we talked.
Oh, right. Once I found it, once I'm like, oh, this is already there, then I listened to all of it right away.
And then we decided that we would still want to do a podcast, but in fact, we bounced around a few ideas too early on. We talked about a movie podcast, but we kind of kept circling this true crime idea. And then about a week later, I think, we kind of had the idea, and I went home, and if you're listening to this by now, you know that Jessica and I are married. So I started talking to her about our brilliant idea, and then we had I'm not 100% sure how this came out.
I just showed up, I think.
You just popped in.
Well, I showed up to your house and you were there, and then it was, Stephen Stainer case was one of the first ones we started working on. And you were doing a lot of research on it, helping us. And then I think Charles was like, why don't we just have Jessica do it? And then, so if you listen to the first 3 or 4 episodes of our season, it's just 2 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started thinking, let's try to do it all 3 of us. So then it became all 3 of us. That's just, it's a learning experience for all of us. So
yeah.
You're kind of on the job training. The idea of us doing California really came out of the fact that when we started, I remember our first time you and I getting together, Sean, and spitballing, when we had settled on that we wanted to do true crime because it was something we were both interested in. A lot of the cases we kept coming back to were all in California.
Right.
And then I think that's kind of how it came out and said, well, if all of these cases are in California and we're all of us are California natives, why don't we just do a podcast focus on California? And then, like you said, and then Jessica got involved almost from the start.
It pretty much was.
Yeah.
It just wasn't really discussed. You were part of it the whole time,
Yeah.
but then got really part of it.
Took over.
Yeah. So guys, what would you call your favorite episode, either like researching or writing or even just being part of in the first season?
It's a hard question because there's been such different ones. I really liked researching Emma Ledoux because there was just so much stuff on it, and it was kind of a nuts case. And then we got to go to places that we lived in Stockton, so drive around and see things that we never even knew were there. We got to take my dad, and that was really fun. That was kind of a different thing.
Yeah, we actually, we call it the Hagen, but I think the technical term is the Hagen Museum in Stockton. If anybody's ever gets to Stockton, you can actually see the trunk in the museum, which was awesome. And we took a trip to Stockton. We had moved away and then went back while Jessica was researching just to see the trunk, and they had locked it up. But we found out since then they brought it back, and I think that's really cool. And then having people I know that have traveled to Stockton who's listened to us and said, "Oh yeah, we went in and we saw the trunk and it was really cool," and that's been kind of fun.
I also really like doing the Steven Stainer episodes. I think because I got to talk about some things I really cared about and research some topics I really cared about. And being from around here, that was another one that there was so much stuff we didn't know that I think it's good people know about.
And I think that the Steven Stainer case was one that started out, I think for all of us, one way. And then after seeing what you did and how you wrote up the story and the research you did, that made me look at it entirely differently than what I originally thought. Because I didn't know, and we had talked about it before, but I didn't really know a lot going into it other than he was kidnapped and, it was something from our childhood. But that one kind of opened my eyes to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of good information just to have it as knowledge.
That was a hard episode, though, too. I can't only imagine I know we all watched you research, but being on the receiving end of that and talking about it and constantly reviewing that information, I think that was one of the harder ones we did.
I think for me was working on Ketty, because it was one of the first that I'd never heard of it, started just diving in, and it was a roller coaster because you had the horrible crimes, you had the like total early 80s photos that are scary enough because it's early 80s photos that just always look creepy. Like,
yeah, the gold hue,
like
grainy.
It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre on 16 millimeter. It's just scary because it looks so disgusting. And those pictures, and then watching that, like I did the research and then found that documentary, and I ended up watching it 3 times to make sure I got all the info. And then watching Love Boat for the first time, and just the worst time of my life. That 30 minutes I can't get back watching that, and that was so hard. But that was a really, I think just with the case in general, where you go, oh my God, so many times with that, because you just don't know it seems to all be there, but it's not, because no one's ever caught. It was a weird case.
Well, and on the other side of that, watching you do the research and then talk, because it was one that I'd never heard of, and having watched the documentary, but then it was fun to see how excited is the wrong term, but like I recall at like odd times of day or night getting texts from you saying, "Oh, do you believe this?" and then getting all these links of all of this information that you were going through. That was a fun experience to see the discovery.
I was really into it for a long, like too many hours at once. Like it kind of took over, and I felt gross. But I was texting you guys a lot about it because I was so like just trying to get, because it was like the timeline and trying to get everything. It's hard. Some of these cases are there's so much info. It's hard to bring it in where like 13 episodes of Steven Stainer. It's hard to get it all in a small, because there's so many interesting facts and important information that needs to go into it, or you're leaving stuff out that should be talked about. So it's just hard.
I think for me, my favorite of my episodes was the Fong Little Pete Ching.
Yeah.
Because it was, that one was that encompassed my entire life for 3 or 4 months while I was researching it, and I read Dalton's book, which we will actually post up. I think I have a link on our episode notes page, and going through old newspapers in San Francisco Call, and doing some outside historical research and checking the internet, that opened an entire world to California history that I'd never studied it when I was in school or in college. I have since brought it up to almost every stranger or colleague or work associate that I like. Did you know that California had an underground Chinese slave trade? And it's opened my eyes to a lot of and like you said, there's so much to some of these cases that never gets talked about or never really gets brought to light. And that was a story that I really liked. And himself, like Ching, was a really interesting character that had a huge impact on California history. That was, to me, I think that was my favorite episode.
I really liked that one too, just because it was 3 episodes and it was just so much history of somewhere I lived before, and not Chinatown, but San Francisco in general. And it, you walk down a certain sidewalk and you don't even think about the history that might actually have happened around there. And it's interesting to know all that. And
then a close second was Dorothea Puente, because that was a case that I had been fascinated since I was a little kid. And so to go more into her life and the crimes and what that meant for vulnerable population in Sacramento, and seeing some of the same problems that Sacramento dealt with in the 70s and 80s, and that's some of the same stuff we're dealing with now. I thought that was really interesting.
I like these cases because they're a different way of looking, like you said, at the places. Some of them we know, Sacramento, but we got really in depth in there, or San Francisco, but also, Keddie's a place I'd never even really heard of.
Right. And
learning about the people who live there and what those people went through. I don't know, it's just a different way of looking at California.
Yeah, even with our Mother Goose Parade episode, it's you learn about El Cajon and all that stuff.
Well, Kathy, who we mentioned in that episode, I've been friends with Kathy for 10 or 12 years. Never, and I knew she was from Southern California, and just as an offhand comment, because I literally talk to everyone I know or don't know about our podcast, my friends have had to listen to that a lot. And she mentioning, I'm from El Cajon, and then got this whole other side of the parade and the history of the area. And that was really fun. And then also finding out that all these places we're talking about that on their surface are really different. El Cajon is not Quincy, and Quincy's not Sacramento, and that's not San Francisco. But under it all, they really are. I mean, we're all Californians, but there are a lot of more similarities than you first look at, I think, or first realize. So now we want to go over, we've asked our Facebook group. So if you don't follow us on Facebook, you can follow us on Facebook at it's California True Crime.
Right. And we have a discussion group that you can be part of. Yeah. It's not just a page, you can be part of the group.
And so we're asked our discussion group, what questions do you guys have about the season or us, or really just kind of anything. And we'd like to thank everyone for joining our discussion group. It's been really fun. I'm not always the best at Facebook, but I'm trying to get better. But we've had some really interesting stuff discussed in there, and we have listeners that actually sent us a picture of Dorothea Puente's house. They knew somebody that had lived there. So we're going to go through some of these questions and answer them as best as we can from our discussion group. And the first one comes from Andy, who we actually had a chance to meet, and was a really amazing person. It was fun to meet somebody that listens to us in the real world. The question is, out of all the cases you covered, which one took the longest to decompress from covering?
I think that one is pretty obvious. I mean, the Steven Stainer, it wasn't so much because it was 13 episodes, but it was also, we like to write, we like to go over it, we like to discuss it before we record it. So, and then also things come up. So you're getting them almost, I think it was you got like half, and then there was a little break, wasn't there? Or a couple weeks or something. So one episode might take us 3 weeks or longer. So it was quite a long period of time that we were discussing it all. So I think that might have been, and just the subject matter, talking about that constantly. It's not so much that it was just long, it was the subject matter too.
I want to say the same. I mean, for same reasons, I think having watched you, Jessica, do the research and write. I mean, not talking out of school. You rewrote the entire series twice.
Yeah, I often rewrite things.
And so that, and the fact that most of our house for a good year has been taken up with stacks and stacks and stacks of research on terrible, terrible stories of Kenneth Parnell and some really like stuff when the family comes over has to be covered up.
Yeah, that was I love doing it, and I'm really happy that we did, but it was a harder one to do and to build a history to talk about the time period. One of the ones that I had a little trouble kind of getting over was the San Jose Halloween murders because of the brutal nature of it. And for whatever reason, that one really challenged my ideas about certain laws and things like that. And so for me, that was one I still think about quite a bit, even though it wasn't as long or as...
Right. I don't think the length matters.
Yeah.
I think the recording of the length mattered with Stephen.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But definitely when you're just researching, and it can be anything.
I think the Halloween murders, too, had one of our first, I won't say our first big disagreements, but I recall us sitting around a table before, like you said, Sean, going over initially and reading it and having a really heated discussion about whether you can tell or not. All three of us have certain leanings about certain laws or how certain things are carried out. And I think that was the first time where we really took a step back and realized that all three of us were being challenged by this particular case. And that was a 2-hour conversation that we never, I was kicking ourselves thinking we should have recorded that, but that was a tough one.
Yeah, we get some discussion sometimes.
Right.
I mean, we're sitting around talking about horrible things and then talking to each other. I feel like we have pretty good heated opinion arguments, not so much where we're angry.
No, I didn't. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah, well, you didn't say that, but I'm just thinking about them. It's like we're not like throwing things at each other or I got my fist shaking or anything like that. But we definitely have our own opinions, and we get heated conversations, which is, I'm glad. I think it's good.
I feel like that's how I know I'm very close friends with you two, because I'm not used to stating how I feel or how I think about things. And I feel comfortable doing that with you guys and doing it on air sometimes. And that's a really big, I don't know, gift is the right word, but it's nice to have that.
Yeah.
That we could talk about stuff that's difficult and there's not always a right answer, and we enjoy it too, to have three people that we could sit for hours, I think, late into the night sometimes.
We do, a lot.
True crime, laws, movies, and time travel, really.
Right.
Time travel. God, that conversation, that went forever about time travel.
And that kind of goes on to Andy's question about the decompress is like once we're done with any, like we get together and go over those cases, or if it's a night that we're recording or our field trips to the library, whenever we're done, we usually spend a good hour or sometimes 2 just talking about anything other than true crime, movies, time travel. Those are our 2 big topics, conversations. Music. Actually, because of the podcast, I've learned I have a whole new selection of music that I listen to, and so that's also a good way of decompressing after some of the stuff we've had to read. So the next question comes from Kim, who we also had a chance to meet and is an amazing person. We absolutely love Andy and Kim and thank them for their support and their questions, as we do everybody in our group. Kim's question was, she's asking us if we're thinking about doing any true crime podcasting festivals, like Crime Con or any of those. The big one, I think, was in Chicago this year.
Yeah, it's hard. I think we'd love to. That's the thing. We talk about it. But I think with scheduling and money, it's just like it's hard with everything. But we'd love to. We might do one closer to home at first if we can find one, or we'll just set up a table on a street somewhere and do it ourselves, and call it a con, which it would be.
Yeah,
we've been conning everyone.
We've talked about the idea of doing just like a meetup to start out with and to see who shows up to that.
But we could probably try to get a couple of our other friend podcasts with us, so we can make our own little California one somewhere.
Yeah,
because it was really fun when we met up with Andy and Kimmy.
Yeah, it was.
And that was the first time I've really hung out with. I mean, I know you guys are into true crime. But a lot of our other friends, they listen, but they're not like,
Politely.
as into it. So hanging out with the two other people who were, and not in a weird way, just
No,
in that,
just-
we were really respectful. We talked a lot about some really deep topics and stuff.
But understood that, and I think that's the way you said talk about it respectfully. It was,
Yeah.
It's not like we're sitting around giggling about terrible event, but it was fun. It was fun to talk about people. I guess anytime it's fun to talk about when people have similar interests.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to hang out with them again and meet some other people.
Our next question comes from Terry. How do you decide what cases to showcase, and is there a certain criteria?
We kind of just pick stuff that's interesting to us, stuff we've heard about. I think you guys started when you made a list together, and then we kind of really deviated from that, I think. I don't know.
The actual name for our list is the Crime Database.
Yeah, but I haven't looked at it in a while. I was looking through, I have notebooks everywhere that like I'll write lyrics in or homework, and there was a name in one. I'm like, who's this guy? So I Google searched him, and it was one of the original names from like when we made that list. But I think
that list now has, I looked at it just yesterday, actually. I think we're up to 175 California cases.
Oh, so we should never run out of material. But like a lot of times I'll find something, a subtopic that might go with crime, and then Google search it to see if I can find anyone. So like me, I like music. And so I'd look up, maybe someone that was murdered or a murderer who was really into music and try to find things like that. And, and then look at the cases. If it seems interesting or catches my own attention, then I'll start writing about it.
I know we also we move towards the ones where there's not a lot of information, or they're not as well known, or ones that we know the places and we've never heard of them. They kind of interest us. Mm-hmm. Be interesting to research. And that's the thing I learned is that you have to find something you're interested in. Otherwise, the research you just don't get into it. You don't do it.
I think it's funny too, because a lot of our cases coming up for second season and beyond, like you said, spiraled out of our research done for this season. I know of 3 or 4 cases that are on our docket to like start researching and get to work on, came out of one of our cases or another, of our time on the microfiche machine, or our time in the newspaper archives, or whatever, or read a throwaway line out of a book. Oh, well, this case is similar to this. And then, like you said, then we spend days in a rabbit hole looking at all the weird kind of stuff that's connected to it.
I think also because we are California true crime, and when we first got started, it was more like we were just starting out and we're like, okay, we'll focus on true crime in California. But then doing all the research on the history of certain places, that really got my attention. I really liked researching the history of California. So I think we try to, go all over the map and find different cities that people might not know about or we haven't talked about yet, just to cover everywhere in California.
Which leads us to our next question from Brenda, who asked more about how we select the places. Are they just in Northern and Southern California? And I know our first season, if you in fact we'll have a graphic up on our website that you can actually look at a map and see the places we went. And a lot of them are in either Northern or Southern California, but a lot of the cases we're working on we're going to expand that. We've done some Central California cases. And then we're always looking for those places that we really haven't covered yet, or an outsider, because I think that's, to me, and we're all native, and if you're listening to this and are from California, a lot of times people, if you don't live here, think that California is simply Hollywood and beaches or the Bay Area, and we're not from those places.
Right.
California's amazing,
Another thing too, it's like I love places like Reno because I like to gamble. So I was thinking about maybe trying to find a California crime that actually goes into Reno a little too, so I can talk about Reno, because I love to talk about Reno. So, even some of them might go everywhere.
I know there's one in my comp book right now that's connected to Texas, so I'm kind of anxious to research more of that. But California is such a big state, and it's so very, within a couple of hours, you can be in almost any kind of climate imaginable, and I think that lends itself to a really interesting history and the different cultures and people that live here. So,
and we do like, if anybody out there has any ideas for cases, to drop us a line on Twitter or Instagram, or even join our group on Facebook, because there are so many cases that don't have a lot of media attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we found a bunch, just like you said, through looking through papers. I mean, there was one point this season where I think Sean asked me, why are all my cases from 1980? And I think I was just researching a case and ended up with all these other cases. Yeah. So it helps if you live somewhere, a small town, big town, whatever it is, and you know of a case that hasn't been covered or you'd like to hear more about, to let us know.
Because we always check it out. Any suggestions, right. We definitely check it out to see if there's enough information we can do an episode on or anything like that. But we'll definitely check it out.
Which is why our list is so long, is because thanks to those of you guys that have listened and joined our group and added to our discussion, we found a few cases that we knew about, and then quite a few cases that I'd never heard of before and are excited to research them. And so that if you suggested something, like Sean said, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. We've actually started looking into it. It may not be our next episode, but we're working on getting it at some point. Our next question, when starting researching a case, do you dive into a rabbit hole, work nonstop, or do you allocate certain amounts of time each day and try to maintain a normal life research balance?
For me, most of the time, I try to make a schedule, but because of the rabbit hole or just the amount of information, it takes you down this time hole where all of a sudden it's 8 hours later and you don't understand why it's 8 hours later.
Right.
So I think every case is different. Some you can just kind of put together here and there maybe, but some it's constant. It could go days.
Yeah, I think I've tried having a schedule. I've tried allocating. Hopefully my employer's not listening to this, but there have been times that, I've spent my lunch hour or certain times in a meeting when no one's looking at my computer, trying to look up or trying to write a first draft of an episode. But 9 times out of 10, it's squirreling away any minute you can to read another chapter or flip through some more newspaper articles. And then, like you said, John, you get stuck in that rabbit hole, and then it's all day. I'm running to the library to look up this thing on microfiche, and then because we've done that and spend all Saturday and them kicking us out as they're closing up. And that's fun, but it also does take a toll.
Yeah.
We have one more question we're going to go over. This one's from Andy again. What is one thing about doing your podcast that keeps you going as you're putting in the long hours of researching, writing, recording, editing, and promoting? And then in brackets, please tell me it's the fame and fortune that comes with indie podcasting, which I love. Yes, it's the fame and fortune comes from indie podcasting.
I think for me, I really I love to research, obviously, and write. And so this is the first time I've been able to really do the two in a while. And so it's just a lot of fun. And then also, a big part of it is I've told you to, I'll do it. So I have to follow through, which is not a very sexy answer, but it's reality.
I agree. I also think Sean needs a huge shout out because we went from chatting about it at a party to 2 weeks later sitting together in a room around a table and paper and a computer saying, okay, we're going to do this. And that's because Sean we're doing it. Let's get together.
Oh, I wanted to do it. Yeah. I think for me, it's like, I listen to podcasts. Well, I mean, I said earlier, I like music, but I also make music, and I want to make it because I like it and I like podcasts. So I'm like, let's make a podcast. And I think for me, the same thing, it's like the research, but also just having all the knowledge, because I'm socially awkward. So if anything gets quiet and I don't know what to say, I can somehow 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon with true crime and just, right. Say, oh, what you're talking about, but then blah, blah, blah. So then I can just keep a conversation going so I don't feel awkward or any random knowledge. How we're learning all about California history. I like knowing all that knowledge too and being able to tell other people about things.
I love I'm the same. I love the research. I really like the writing. I like sitting down and crafting an episode. I like thinking about how we're going to start it and what are we going to talk about. And I've really, really enjoyed the writing. The research is a close second, a very, very close second. I like sitting down and creating something, and and then the learning. I have learned so much, not just about true crime and California history, but thanks to Sean, who does all of our editing and mastering, I'm learning how to edit a lot better than I did before. I'm learning things about microphones. Jess, who pretty much, we have a social media presence on Twitter and Instagram because of Jessica. I've had to learn internet marketing a little bit, and then logo design. And so it's not just the true crime, it's all this other stuff that we need this and we have to do it ourselves. I've really enjoyed that. And getting out of your, like you said, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think it, like all those other little things, it was like being in a punk band in high school when you'd make the worst logo and then go to Kinko's and make black and white stickers.
Right.
That was like so much fun about being in a band, even though we were the worst band ever. But Kinko's at 3 a.m., like trying to figure out how to make it where we can get extra copies with that giant key that you put in. So
This is Nathaniel Lloyd, host of Historical Blindness, the Odd Past podcast. Join us every 2 weeks as we explore the blind spots in our past, uncovering mysteries, exposing hoaxes, and shedding light on obscurities. For the past is a dark and mysterious continent, and looking back, we are but explorers searching for meaning. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and almost any podcast app. I hope you'll check out the show.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some case updates from all the episodes that we had this season. Charles has already sort of shared one, which is that in our Emma Ledoux episode, we talked about how the trunk was not out at the Hagen. It is now out. It's at the Hagen Museum in Stockton. You can go and see it. It's $7 for adults, $5 for seniors.
for the museum, not to just look at a trunk.
Right.
Yeah.
For the whole museum. Children under 10 are free. First Saturday of every month is free if you want to go. They're open Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 5 and Wednesdays to Friday from 1:30 to 5. And we need to go over there.
Yes. It's a great museum, actually, in Central California. They have an amazing special exhibit. They also have an exhibit of Norman Rockwell paintings, like prints from his time with the Saturday Evening Post. But they also have a special gallery that hosts like a special collection, 2 or 3 of those a year. It's a really neat. We're kind of all museum geeks here, but it's for around here. It's a really nice museum that's not too expensive, and it has a little bit of. It has a lot of history of like Sacramento in the Central Valley. Stockton in the Central Valley, but it also has a lot of art and culture. It's a neat thing. They also used to have a museum a mummy actually, but the mummy left.
Just walked
That's
away.
another update.
Yeah, that's another.
But the trunk supposedly is out. We've heard from listeners that
Right.
it's there. So go and see it and let them know that we sent you. Our second update, or my update, is for the San Jose Halloween murders. In that episode, we talked a lot about the death penalty because William Dennis, who murders Doreen Herbert in that episode, receives the death penalty. And in March 2019 here in California, Governor Gavin Newsom put an executive order forth issuing a moratorium on the death penalty. So executions have stopped for the foreseeable future. This is just an update because in that episode, we talked about her family, her daughter and her husband being really involved in all of the propositions to end the death penalty and being against that. So I just wanted to let everybody know where that stood. Another update we have is for the Lamb Park Murders episode. If you've listened to that one, it's still not solved, unfortunately. But ABC 10, since the time we've done it, has done a 3-part, they're each 10 minutes episode, and they finally put them online. So I'm going to put links up for everybody so they can watch that. There are interviews with the family and some more information from detectives that will hopefully might produce a lead. And then my last, or Sean's actually, kind of big update is from Ketty. We when I went through and kind of Googled everything to see if we had missed anything, I found out that in the Keddy case, they actually found DNA from a strip of the white medical tape. That was, I think they found it was a tape they used to bind everybody, but they found some on the ground, which they believe the murderers brought with them. And in that, they found DNA evidence that matches, they didn't say who, but they said a living suspect, someone who was already a suspect.
So I'm just wondering if they're still living with DNA, there's still probably not enough evidence that it could have came from, with like the DNA being on it.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have borrowed it. Like, let's say they did bring it, they borrow it from someone else. They don't want to, or they might have questioned him already and they don't seem like a suspect, or.
The article I read, the detectives seemed pretty interested in it. They did make a point in the article to say that they always believe there are multiple suspects.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe it matches someone who it's hard to prove how much they were involved.
Right.
I don't know the situation, but with DNA, that's still pretty exciting.
But wasn't this a little bit ago also, and nothing's said anymore?
Yeah, just a
like
few months
year.
ago.
Oh,
or like 6 months ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So it still might come out.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's too, with a lot of the research we did, some of those cases, you start reading and it's, years and years and years building those cases to make sure that there's no, that the party that they're going after will be arrested and be able to be prosecuted. So,
well, and
hopefully.
if it's like you're saying, if it's someone who, in theory, let's just say someone who lived there, then they have to also prove, like you said, it's not there for accidentally or some other reason.
Right.
Or like, touch DNA, the idea of.
But like how you said, how involved are they?
Right.
Like, because
Yeah.
with this case, let's say it came from one of the houses of who they might.
Did you steal the tape?
Or even if they weren't involved, but they're living together,
Right.
kind of
Right.
thing. It's hard.
Yeah.
And we're just we know that there's some DNA on tape. We're not saying anything. Like, we're just speculating on.
Yeah,
we're going down a rabbit hole right now.
Right,
but
right.
yeah, hopefully they'll have an update, of an update soon.
I have two updates. Not really about the cases, just about the subject matter. After researching Fong Little Pete Ching, I have since, if you are a Showtime subscriber and have seen the television show Warriors, which is about the Tong Wars in San Francisco in the 1880s and 1890s. Apparently, Little Pete is I haven't finished binging this season. I'm only a few episodes in. It's really good, actually. But it is about the lifestyle of the Hatchet Men. And I had heard through someone told me that Little Pete is somewhere in the episode. Like, there is an episode that deals with him as a crime lord. He's also mentioned in an episode of Wu Assassin on Netflix, which is another great show. But the one of the villains in the first half of the season, his first appearance, starts talking about Fong Ching. They called him Little Pete, and he's talking about him being the war, the crime boss of San Francisco and stuff. And I thought, it's really cool. So again, just something we researched coming into the popular culture. The other update I have is on the Dorothea Puente house in Sacramento, was on the pilot episode of a home improvement house for murder sites, which shocked me to no end.
Just for murder sites?
Well, I won't say murder sites, but sites of crimes. So like homes, and I mean, I'm torn. Part of me wants to watch the show just to see it, but which I guess an argument could be said we're doing the same thing, but I like to think that we're not trivializing the fact that this is a house where people were killed and buried, and a terrible criminal tried to get away with it.
I'm just going to say I think they are. It's like a flip this house kind of show for serial killers. And I think we first figured it out. Brianna told us, we do trivia with her, and she wrote us and told us about it. And I was like, wow, they're really doing this kind of show now. I don't know. My opinion, it's a little over the top.
The pilot is out, I think. I have to do a little more research. If we can find it, I'll post it up on the Dorothea Puente episode page. But that was, I think, and when we live in a time now where true crime is everywhere, it's just an instance of, a crime that happened. That means it is still people are paying attention to and listening, and then making these shows. So the title of the show is called Murder House Flip.
Okay, so exactly what I was saying. It was a
Exactly.
pretty horrible show, yeah.
And the sources have told from an article found on the internet, the sources have told that the production crew is planning on using ground penetrating radar to go over the yard to see if they can discover new bodies that the police and the FBI failed to find.
So it's Geraldo meets House Hunters,
It
pretty
really,
much.
yeah. Like for that reference, if you're, I guess, under the age of 30.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's we got it.
Yeah.
Geraldo Rivera had the opening Al Capone's vault.
Right.
I remember watching that.
Who did Titanic? Was that
James Cameron.
No.
The movie?
No, they did another one where was it Kojak who went down and they found like a safe in Titanic?
Yeah. And in that one, was it like a couple bottles of champagne or something?
Yeah, Telly Savalas, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The just for the record though, Geraldo Rivera's Al Capone's vault, 2 hours. I sat through every minute of that as a kid, and there was nothing in it.
Jessica, you don't know about the Telly Savalas Titanic?
No, a TV show where he
Yeah, I think
he
it was
finds like the heart of the ocean. Like what?
I think it was like the same kind of thing. He go ahead, Charles, look it up.
Why Telly Savalas?
I don't know, because he liked Dum Dums
Oh my gosh.
and he was bald. I don't know. I mean,
Wow, no, I need to watch it. That's amazing.
I could be wrong.
That's so interesting.
It's Titanic Live, a night, or the Washington Post article is titled "Titanic Live, a Night to Forget," and this is from 1987. Controversial $3 million, and this is from the Washington Post article by Ken Ringel, and that's from October 29th, 1987. Controversial $3 million French-American expedition to the wreck of the RMS Titanic brought everything up, or what they had found up on television, about $5,000 in gold coins and a handful of discolored jewelry, a few banknotes extracted from a safe, and satchel found on the ocean floor. So they went to there, dug all this stuff up, brought it up, and then they revealed it to the world. And it was
Telly Savalas?
it's Telly Savalas.
That's amazing. I just know him as a serious actor. So
Telly Savalas. Well,
right?
I
Who am I
guess.
thinking of?
I mean, Kojak.
Yeah.
Bald head.
Yeah.
Dum-Dums.
I really think of him as
they
a.
even
I don't know.
in this article they even reference it was a 2-hour television event called Return to the Titanic ... live, and it is capitalizing on the earlier Al Capone's vault, which was another huge fiasco.
See, this is the garbage information that I like to know, so I can
Yeah.
bring it up in a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Blew
good.
me away.
That's a good test, though. Just say Al Capone's vault in a room full of people, and you can separate on age.
Yeah. So now I'd like to read some reviews. We always, at the end of the podcast, ask everyone if they wouldn't mind reviewing, good or bad. We like the criticism, no matter what. I'm going to read. I really only want to read the bad ones, but I will read a couple good ones just because they're good. So this first one's from Fortnite Nerd, and it says research and conversation. This is one of the best research podcasts that I've listened to in a long time. I love the conversations between the hosts. They really care about the topics and speak about victims with care and reverence. Keep it up. That was a nice one. And then another one from TRJVBP says, love it. Happily discovered this podcast and love it. I'm from the SF Bay Area, yet was not aware of some of these stories. Hosts have pleasant voices, and their dialogue is natural and non-scripted. Looking forward to listening to the rest of them. So, thank you.
Those are nice.
Yes. So, here's another one from Addy Rama. It says, out of their depth. The amount of speculation and lack of knowledge exhibited by the performers make it seem like they are out of their depth. They have no legal background, no law enforcement background. They seem like they are telling stories. They are telling a story and hoping their lack of expertise does not matter to the listeners. So I'm sorry that I'm not a lawyer or a police officer or anything in law enforcement. I am trying to do as much research as possible. It was a 2-star out of 5, so I'm not
nice,
sure
though.
if...
I do like being called a performer, though. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. Because we don't film it, but we're usually, jumping through hoops, and there's like a big ring of fire right now.
I do think of a circus as when you say performer.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I have a cape and a top hat?
So let me get to my favorite. This is from TGYGUNYFUHYF. So I'm not sure if you're listening. I'd love to actually talk to you. So if you want to put your real name or just write us, I'd love to talk to you. Your review is titled So California, 1 out of 5. I love true crime, but you guys spend so much time on political correctness, clarifying in detail what words and phrases mean or meant at another time, and how you disagree over sensitivity, political correction. I never want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm a native Californian and can't stand this. You spend more time defending your position than talking true crime. You make California look bad. I put up with 8 years of Obama and didn't like it or vote for it, but I stood by it. But his ugly, godforsaken legacy shows itself here. Yeah,
that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, and I'm cool. I'm glad that I've given California a bad look. I'm happy with it.
Well, I don't think we gave California a bad look.
Hey,
I'm happy with it.
Thinks that we did. So
we appreciate your listening.
Yeah, give us more reviews. If we like it, we'll put it on here on the next one. And we're happy to discuss if whoever wants to talk. I love talking. I love chatting with people who might not have the same views as me too. So,
yeah, like Jessica mentioned earlier, we do have a Facebook group, a public page that you're more than welcome to go to. Then we have a closed discussion group where we talk about cases and things like that. But we'd love to hear from you, good, bad, or indifferent, honestly.
Right. Like we talked about earlier, we have our differences. We have heated opinion conversations, and we're still here doing this and still going to dinner and hanging out.
Right.
We don't hate each other. We like our different opinions.
Yeah. I think that's.
Are we supposed to hate each other?
No. Well, I mean,
kind of sounded like maybe we were supposed to.
Oh, I can hate you if you want me to. I'm more than happy to.
No, it's all right.
I haven't hated anyone in a long time. If you're putting it out there, Jessica.
I'm not offering. I'm just,
So we'd like to take a little bit of time now to talk about the kind of those people in the podcasting community that helped us out early on and that really supported us when we were just getting our feet wet and have kind of been there for any time we've had a question or needed some, guidance or just a friendly retweet, and again, this list is not necessarily contained to just these people we're reading, because what we've found this last 2 years has been not just the true crime podcasting community, but really the podcasting community in general has been hugely supportive and opening and welcoming, and really we haven't come across anyone either in person or in through social media that has told us no, or we're not, do it yourself. Or everybody's really been quick with some words of encouragement and some helpful tips, and really I think part of our podcast coming out like it has is due to a lot of this support. So right now we kind of want to shout out, like to do a special shout out to like Nordic True Crime, which was one of our first people that we went to and was, I think, one of our first retweets, which was really cool. We'd also like to thank Historical Blindness, which is also Central California, and someone who I'm going to become best friends with soon if we ever meet in real life. We'd also like to thank also Southern Gothic, who I actually, if you listen to their episode on cemeteries in New Orleans, I'm one of the guest voices, which was really cool to do.
Two of the people that really helped us out right at the beginning were Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss and Mo from Targeted Podcast. Those were two people who were always there. They would come to us, let us know that if we needed anything, we could ask them. And Kate has set up a lot of things for indie podcasters to get to know each other and work together. And that's really been amazing.
I think with me, like getting into this, I started venturing out, looking at way more podcasts, and I was able, one great one is Dark Divide, and was able to get to know her well. And then also All Crime No Cattle was another great one.
Yeah.
And I think how I brought up, we decided not to do the Zodiac because Criminology already had it. And then we already had this going, and then we learned about California Dreamin'.
Right.
And it's like we totally stepped on her, we're cramping her style, everything. And she has been the opposite of what you think would happen. She's been extremely supportive, a great person, and it's so crazy. Like, I haven't had a community like this in a long time. When a young in like the Central Valley bands, when the music scene, you're like in it together, everyone's against you, and you've got to, and this just feels that way where everyone's helping out, and it's really cool.
And like you said, we really found a lot of, I know my inbox on my podcasts now are tripled because of all the great content that mainly indie podcasts, not that there aren't great podcasts from the bigger companies, but this has opened my eyes to a lot of the hard work and stuff that goes into making some really good content for little or no, on the cheap. People are just doing it in their garages or home studios or wherever they're doing it. And so we want to thank everybody. And if we didn't mention your name, I know we left people off. One of the big one was Sean was a guest on, was Bungalow Chat.
Oh yeah, Bungalow has always been a huge supporter. He's Stallion Network back in the day. He's been doing it forever, so it's great. And if any of these you haven't listened to, you should check them out, and you'll probably enjoy them like we did.
Yeah.
And check out our Twitter feed, because there's every day a lot more indie podcasts, and we always retweet them and their episodes, and there's just tons of good stuff to listen to.
So, and we have talked to a few other people on that note that have come up to us and said, hey, I've always wanted to do that. And then if you're thinking about that, then, all it takes is a conversation at a holiday party and, some mics and a computer. And so if you're on that boat, then I would totally recommend trying it, because it's addictive and it's fun. We'd also like to thank all the other people that have supported us throughout this endeavor, starting with like our Patreon supporters. We thank you very, very much for giving up your hard-earned cash to help support this podcast. Like we've talked to you guys tonight, it does take a lot of time and effort, and it has taken some, money for equipment or copies or, subscriptions to archives. So we really support. You guys have helped us immensely. We've currently taken our Patreon down during our break. We will be putting it up when we start season 2. So if you're not a Patreon supporter, go to CaliforniaTrueCrime.com. We'll have links on our new and improved website that you can donate to, or go to Patreon and you can look us up there. But thank you though to those people. I'd also like to thank, like, just like we've joked about it, but our family and friends too. I know all of our friends are tired of hearing about true crime and what we're doing. And I've had friends at work that help support and will listen to. One particular friend in particular, Mike, who constantly talks about our podcast, and thanks to him, I think we've gotten 3 more listeners. So
I guess we should thank my wife also. She dealt with a lot of, we would do the podcast, record them, listen, and go, okay, I think it's good. Then we'd send it over to my wife, and then she would go, are you really going to say this? Oh, you said this wrong. And then we'd have to re-edit. But it's good. It's always but she'd listen to all of them and make sure they were okay. So thank you, Melanie Duncan.
I know it made me feel a lot better to have someone listen to it before we put it out.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, you don't want to...
and it really is quality control.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why she's our quality control, many words such as manager, director, guru. Whatever.
We need to put up a list. If you are a loyal listener and have listened to them and
all the way till the very end
and heard all of them. So we want to close with just a note about season 2. We are working on season 2. We're actually currently researching the first part of our chosen cases. We're going through our lists. We do thank you for your suggestions. We actually took some of our cases this season from your suggestions in our Facebook group. And we will be putting together episodes and recording them as soon as we have the research done. Some of the episodes may not necessarily be the typical true crime. We have some I think interesting cases this season.
It will definitely still be cases. We want to keep the tradition going of like we did the Halloween episode and the parade Thanksgiving episode. We want to do things like that, but we are going to have some episodes that like Charles just said, it will be a little different, but they'll still be interesting, I hope. They were interesting to us. That's why we want to do it.
Right. So we hope you stay tuned. Again, we'd love for you to stop by our Facebook group, join the discussion. You can again find us at California True Crime on Facebook. As always, we tweet at Cali True Crime. So please join that. Join us on Twitter. Right?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's good. That's good. Just keep it rolling.
Okay.
It's a cool, real young way to say it.
Yeah.
Join us on the gram, as the kids say.
Oh, do they? I've
yeah,
never
they do.
heard
They
that.
do. On the gram.
Okay.
We haven't got a TikTok yet, but I'm working on it.
I'll be getting our Friendster, our MySpace, and our AOL Messenger up as soon as possible. If you want to, it'll probably be at Cali True Crime, so join us there.
And you can also go to CaliforniaTrueCrime.com. We're actually working on a new webpage with updated episode notes, links to our social media and our Patreon, as well as some other fun stuff we have going on there. So kind of keep an eye on that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Sean.
We will
Jessica.
see you soon. We do have, while we wait for season 2, we're hopefully going to get you some bonus episodes also. Hopefully.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not going to say 100% because scheduling and time and scheduling and everything. So, but we really want to.
We have one lost episode too. One episode that was recorded and was not released, actually.
A bonus episode, yeah.
A bonus episode.
Oh, yeah. I was lost. I couldn't remember it. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.